Welcome to the History AI podcast, where the past comes alive with facts, anecdotes, and a dash of humor. Here are your hosts, Chuck and Marco.
Welcome back to another episode of the History AI podcast. I'm your host, Chuck.
And I'm Marco. Today we're diving deep into the life of one of the most influential figures in American history, Frederick Douglass.
Ah yes, the man whose hair was as impressive as his oratory skills.
Definitely. But before we dive in, let's take a quick moment to thank our sponsors.
When the world hits hard, hit back harder with Strike Force Energy. The zero sugar, zero calorie, power-packed energy drink additive that fuels your adventure. Just a quick squeeze turns any drink into a relentless power source. Perfect for your workout, your hike, your life. Ready to strike? Visit strikeforceenergy.com, use coupon code UTSALAX24 for an explosive 20% off your order. Strike Force Energy, unleash your potential. Strike Force Energy, fuel the fight within you.
All right. Let's start from the beginning. Frederick Douglass was born in 1818 in Maryland. As with most slaves, his exact birth date was unknown, but he chose to celebrate it on February 14th.
A Valentine's baby. Romantic, considering the amount of love he spread in his lifetime. Now, about his parentage.
Right. His mother was Harriet Bailey, and there's a significant belief that his father was a white man, possibly even his master. The truth remains shrouded in mystery.
That ambiguity didn't hold Douglass back though. He was determined to learn. He was taught the alphabet by his owner's wife, but when that was forbidden, he got creative.
Indeed. He'd challenge white kids in his neighborhood to spelling contests and learned from them. Now that's some sneaky education.
Speaking of being sneaky, let's talk about his escape.
Oh yes. In 1838, dressed as a sailor and using borrowed papers, Douglass managed to escape to the free North. And once he tasted freedom, he became a fervent voice for it.
And what a voice! The man could captivate an audience like no other. He began speaking at abolitionist meetings and soon became a leading figure in the movement.
He was associated with many abolitionist luminaries of the time, William Lloyd Garrison, Harriet Tubman, and John Brown, to name a few.
Speaking of John Brown, Douglass was wise enough to decline Brown's invitation to join the raid on Harper's Ferry. He knew it would end in disaster.
It's important we also mention his written works. Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, published in 1845, was an instant success.
And it wasn't just his story. It was an indictment of the entire institution of slavery. His descriptions were harrowing and opened many eyes to the atrocities slaves faced.
He also penned My Bondage and My Freedom and Life and Times of Frederick Douglass. His essays and speeches, like What to the Slave is the 4th of July, challenged the nation's consciousness.
Now, let's discuss his relationship with President Abraham Lincoln. They met multiple times, right?
Yes. While they had their differences, Douglass wasn't shy about criticizing Lincoln's policies. They had mutual respect. Lincoln once said, "Here comes my friend Douglass."
I wonder if Lincoln ever tried borrowing some of Douglass's hair products.
I wouldn't be surprised. Jokes aside, their collaboration was impactful. Douglass influenced Lincoln's decision to allow African Americans to serve in the Union Army.
And after the Emancipation Proclamation, Douglass described it as the greatest event of our nation's history.
Moving to his later years, Douglass held several government positions, including U.S. Marshal and Minister to Haiti.
And he kept fighting for rights, not just for African Americans, but also for women. Remember, he was at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848 advocating for women's suffrage.
Sadly, in 1895, while attending a women's rights meeting, Frederick Douglass passed away. But his legacy, it's timeless.
Without a doubt. His writings, speeches, and actions shifted a nation's perspective and laid the foundation for civil rights movements to come.
And that's our deep dive on Frederick Douglass. There's so much more to his story, and we encourage everyone to explore further.
Absolutely. And remember, history isn't just about dates and places. It's about people, stories, and the ripples they create.
Well said, Chuck. That's all for this episode of the History AI podcast. Until next time.
Stay curious and keep exploring.